The soldier who stopped a whole airport to honor his commitment. You will reroute immediately. The words, sharp and bureaucratic, cut through the quiet reverence surrounding the honor guard. The airport operations manager, clipboard in hand, stands his ground, blocking Sergeant Edward Winslow's path as he escorts his fallen brother-in-arms through the terminal. But the manager crosses an unforgivable line the moment he lays a hand on the flag-draped casket. What happens next isn't a battle of force, but a battle of wills. It's a moment that will bring a bustling international airport to a dead stop, stunning thousands of travelers into a profound, reverent silence. This is the story of how one soldier's unwavering commitment to a sacred promise became a powerful, unforgettable lesson in respect. This is a dramatized account, inspired by the real traditions of military honor and the profound respect owed to those who make the ultimate sacrifice. The polished black shoes of Sergeant Edward Winslow move with mechanical precision across the gleaming airport floor. Every step is measured, deliberate, a testament to years of discipline. He and the 7 other soldiers of the honor guard move as one, their focus absolute. Between them, they carry the immense weight of their duty, a weight symbolized by the casket of Lieutenant Matthew Henshaw, draped in the nation's flag. Winslow had known Henshaw for 7 years. They'd trained together, served 2 tours side by side, and shared that unbreakable bond forged only when soldiers entrust each other with their lives. 3 nights ago, Winslow got the call that his friend hadn't made it back from a classified operation. Henshaw's last words to him, spoken half-jokingly over a crackling satellite phone months earlier, now echoed in his memory with crushing finality. "If anything happens, Ed, bring me home proper." Those words are heavier than the casket he now helps to carry. Each step is the fulfillment of that sacred promise. This isn't just an escort for a fallen soldier. This is a brother bringing another brother home. The journey to the airport was a blur of quiet efficiency and solemn protocol. From the moment they received Lieutenant Henshaw's remains, Sergeant Winslow was a picture of stoic perfection. His uniform, immaculate, his bearing unflinching, but underneath, a storm of grief and responsibility raged. He wasn't just a sergeant in the Royal Guard, he was the keeper of a final vow. He remembered Henshaw's family waiting at a private entrance to the airfield, his father Thomas, a veteran himself, standing ramrod straight, his eyes holding a grief so deep it seemed to swallow the light around him. He saw Henshaw's sister Rebecca, clutching her young daughter, trying to explain in hushed tones why her uncle was making his final journey in such a somber parade. Winslow met their gaze with a slow, respectful nod. Words were useless here. Only the silent language of shared loss and profound respect would do. The military's role in this final journey is known as a dignified transfer, a solemn movement of a fallen service member's remains. It is a procedure steeped in honor, designed to show appreciation and compassion for the families of the fallen. Every detail is meticulously planned. Escorts, often from the soldier's own unit, accompany their comrade on the final leg home. This tradition makes a promise tangible, a promise that no one gets left behind. For Winslow, this was more than protocol. It was personal. He could still hear Henshaw's laughter, see his confident grin before their last deployment. Bringing him home proper meant upholding every ounce of dignity the uniform represented. No shortcuts, no compromises, no interruptions. As they entered the main terminal, the noise of the civilian world rushed in, a cacophony of rolling suitcases, hurried announcements, and echoing conversations that felt like a violation of the sacred silence they carried. Yet, as they proceeded, a subtle change rippled through the crowd. Travelers paused, their faces shifting from impatience to curiosity, and then to a quiet understanding. Phones were lowered, heads bowed. A path began to clear on its own, a silent corridor of respect forming before them. It was a testament to the power of the flag, the uniform, and the final silent sacrifice it represented. But not everyone saw it that way. "Excuse me, you can't come through here." The voice belonged to a man in a sharp suit, his name tag identifying him as Mr. Barnes, the airport operations manager. He moved with an air of harried importance, his expression a mix of annoyance and disbelief. He planted himself directly in the honor guard's path, holding up his hand as if to halt traffic. "You'll have to use the service corridor," Barnes insisted, his voice loud enough to break the spell of reverence that had settled over the terminal. "This is a main thoroughfare. We have departing flights, security checkpoints. You're creating a bottleneck." Sergeant Winslow didn't stop. The honor guard's pace remained unchanged, their rhythm a slow, steady heartbeat. Winslow's eyes stayed fixed forward, his focus absolute. To him, Barnes was just an obstacle, a temporary disruption to a mission of immense importance. Frustrated by the silent treatment, Barnes grew more agitated. He stepped closer, his voice taking on a sharper edge. "Sir, I am giving you a direct order. This is my airport, and my rules apply to everyone. You will redirect immediately," he hissed, stepping so close he nearly touched the front bearer. It was then that he made his critical error. In a gesture of exasperated authority, he reached out and placed his hand on the corner of the flag-draped casket, as if to physically steer it in another direction. In an instant, everything stopped. The 8 soldiers of the honor guard froze in perfect unison. The rhythmic cadence of their march ceased. The silence that followed was deafening, a sudden void in the terminal's ambient noise. Sergeant Winslow slowly turned his head, his gaze, cold and unwavering, finally landing on Mr. Barnes. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. "Remove your hand," Winslow said. The words were quiet, but they carried the weight of absolute command. Barnes, taken aback by the sudden stillness and the force of Winslow's gaze, hesitated. He was used to being in charge, to his orders being followed without question. This was a clash of 2 different worlds. The world of timetables and regulations versus the world of honor and tradition. "Sir, I sympathize with your loss," Barnes said, trying to regain his professional composure. "But this is an airport, not a military base. We have protocols." Winslow's reply was a lesson in a different kind of authority. Not the kind from a title or a clipboard, but the kind earned through service and sacrifice. "His name," Sergeant Winslow began, his voice steady and clear, cutting through the tension, "was Lieutenant Matthew Henshaw. He was awarded the Military Cross, posthumously, for leading a rescue operation that saved 27 civilians and 14 servicemen. His escort will proceed as arranged." The operations manager, Barnes, was speechless. The information hung in the air, transforming the anonymous casket into the final resting place of a hero. The crowd, which had now formed a large, silent circle, began to murmur. Phones were now universally raised, not to capture a conflict, but to bear witness. From the front of the crowd, a small voice pierced the tension. "Uncle Matthew was a hero, wasn't he, Grandpa?" a little girl asked, looking up at the old man beside her, Thomas Henshaw, the fallen soldier's father. Before Barnes could find a response, the old man, his back ramrod straight, spoke. His voice, though aged, was filled with a strength that resonated through the terminal. "Yes, he was, sweetheart, and heroes deserve to be honored." But Barnes, his authority challenged and his schedule in chaos, made one last stand. "This is my final warning," he snapped, his face flushed. "Move this procession now, or I will have security escort you out." At that, Sergeant Winslow took one step forward, placing himself between the manager and the casket. He stood at his full height, a figure of unshakable resolve. He looked not at Barnes, but at the crowd, at the faces of the travelers, the airport staff who had stopped their work, the families holding their children close. And then a sound began. It started with a single person, a slow, deliberate clap, then another, and another. Within seconds, the entire terminal filled with applause. It wasn't loud or celebratory. It was deep, rhythmic, and full of respect. It was a wave of public support, a spontaneous referendum on honor versus bureaucracy. The applause washed over the operations manager. He stood frozen, his face a mask of shock and defeat. He looked around and saw not a single face that supported him. He saw travelers with tears in their eyes. He saw his own staff now standing at attention, their allegiance shifted by the raw power of the moment. The applause slowly subsided, replaced once again by that profound silence. The message was clear. The people had spoken. Defeated, Mr. Barnes simply stepped aside. He offered no apology, but his silence was an admission. He had lost. Not to an argument, but to a principle he'd failed to understand. Sergeant Winslow turned back to his men. With a nearly imperceptible nod, he gave the silent command to proceed. The honor guard resumed its solemn, measured pace, their polished shoes once again marking a steady rhythm on the floor. They moved forward, not through a grudgingly cleared path, but through a corridor of silent, heartfelt reverence. As they passed, travelers bowed their heads. Some placed a hand over their heart. A businessman on his phone ended his call and stood at attention. A group of young backpackers, who moments before had been laughing loudly, now stood in humbled silence. The power of the moment had united them all, strangers from every walk of life, in a shared act of respect. Thomas Henshaw, the fallen soldier's father, raised his hand in a perfect military salute as the casket of his son passed. His eyes met Sergeant Winslow's for a fleeting moment, and in that look, a universe of gratitude was exchanged, one military man to another. Winslow gave a slight, acknowledging nod before his gaze returned to the path ahead, his bearing once again the perfect picture of ceremonial precision. The procession continued through the terminal and out toward the waiting aircraft, leaving in its wake a terminal transformed. The usual chaos was gone, replaced by a lingering quiet. People began to move again, but more slowly, their voices softer. They had witnessed something unforgettable. They had seen a commitment that refused to be broken, an honor that refused to be compromised. They had seen a single soldier, backed by the silent support of a crowd, stop an entire airport to fulfill a sacred promise. The story of Sergeant Winslow and his stand at the airport is a powerful dramatization, but it's inspired by very real traditions and genuine incidents. The dignified transfer of a fallen service member is a core tenet of military protocol, a solemn rite ensuring that everyone who makes the ultimate sacrifice is returned home with honor. This intersection of military honor and civilian life plays out in countless ways across the country. In airports, communities regularly gather to welcome home veterans on honor flights, turning terminals into halls of celebration and gratitude for living heroes. These events, where the public is encouraged to attend with flags and signs, show the deep well of respect that exists for military service. However, the tension in Sergeant Winslow's story also reflects plausible challenges. While this specific story is a dramatization, there are real-world accounts of bureaucratic hurdles and moments of public reverence. After the death of U.S. Army Staff Sergeant Brandon Lee Fassoth, a military procession from Chicago's O'Hare Airport saw people lining the streets to pay their respects. Similarly, a massive procession for a fallen Marine on Interstate 70 brought traffic to a standstill as drivers got out of their cars to honor the motorcade. These aren't orders from on high. They are spontaneous, heartfelt displays of national gratitude. These events, both the celebrated receptions and the dramatized standoffs, reveal a fundamental truth. The commitment to honor our fallen is a duty that extends beyond the military. It's a civic responsibility. They remind us that behind every uniform is a human story of courage, sacrifice, and a promise to come home. We want to hear from you. Have you ever witnessed a public moment of honor for a service member? A procession, an airport welcome, or a simple gesture of respect? Share your experience in the comments below. Your stories help us all remember how important these moments are. In the end, this isn't just a story about a soldier stopping an airport. It's about the power of unwavering conviction in a world that often prioritizes speed over substance. It's about the silent, sacred contract between those who serve and the nation they protect. That contract promises that if they should fall, they won't be forgotten, and their final journey home will be one of profound dignity. The image of a lone sergeant bringing a terminal to a standstill is a reminder that true authority isn't found on a name tag or a clipboard. It's found in quiet courage, in steadfast loyalty, and in the relentless commitment to honor a promise made to a brother. It's a powerful testament that sometimes, to truly honor the fallen, the world has to be willing to stop and remember